That's a good sign.
Sort of, man.
I feel like I could see more people.
I remember you saying that. Yep.
Maybe we'll make sure you. Nick, will you be, yeah, show your cell phone too. Nick, would you be, do us the honor of the pledge? Reconvening to public meeting. I need a motion.
Motion.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Seconding it.
Please stand for the pledge, and then after the pledge, we will have one of the signs. Pledge allegiance to
The flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Andrew, can you do the roll call, please? Mrs. August. Present. Mr. Amorando.
Present.
Mr. Ferrioli.
Here.
Mrs. Kennedy. Present. Mrs. Adams.
Present.
Mr. Lucci.
Present.
Mrs. Donnelly.
Present.
Mrs. Nancy. Present. Mr. Middleman.
Present.
Mrs. Warren. Present. And Mr. Budnick.
Present.
Ms. Hughes. Present. And Ms. McGinnis. Present. Thank you.
Some of you may know or may not already know, Mr. Ambassiani had put in his letter of resignation.
That's even worse. No, they're really good. They think of everything.
Last week you couldn't get a microphone to work.
Yeah, now they're too loud. Maybe, oh, we turn the volume down. I think it's the one on the right. Well, that one's working.
I think it was going to boost to it.
We're gonna have to read lightly. Oh, that's good.
Can everybody hear us? Yes?
Okay, as I was saying, for those that do not know, or those that do know, Mr. Ambassiani had given his formal letter of resignation on February 1st. Later on in the agenda, we'll be speaking further on that situation, but for now, I'd like to say a few words on behalf of the Board of Education. I'd like to inform the public that on February 1st, 2016, Mr. Ambassiani tendered his resignation as a board trustee, effective immediately. The board wishes to thank Mr. Ambassiani not only for his past service as a board member, but wishes to also acknowledge his service to the country of the United States, to his country in the United States Marine Corps as a police officer in the United States, in the New York City Police Department, a volunteer firefighter in the Lakeland Fire Department, and the many other community organizations and the students of the Connetquot District. We wish Mr. Ambassiani and his family all the best in their future endeavors. Okay, we're moving on to minutes. Need a motion?
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're moving on to student government. Ladies?
So senior trip was last weekend, and it was a lot of fun. We hope to keep the tradition alive. It was really a great time. We had fun together as a class of 2016. And then this week is Random Acts of Kindness Week, and I don't know if you know ABC Club, it's Anti-Bullying Club. And we put together, we put together a week full of, like, each day is a different thing. Today we handed out Hershey Kisses as people walked in the doors. And then tomorrow we're doing Change for a Change, which is we're collecting money for different local charities. And then Thursday it's Opening the Door to Friendship, which is we're going to stand at the door and open them as people walk in. And then Friday we're wearing purple for suicide awareness.
Earlier this year, the student government, we went to a leadership conference that Smithtown, they held the conference. I think one school on the island picks every year, and Smithtown got it this year. And there was a speaker there, his name was Ed Garrity, and he was very influential in the way that he spoke. He's a motivational speaker. And the student government, we were talking on the bus, and we all loved what he said, so we decided that it would be a good idea to have him come speak at high school. So we're fortunate enough for him to come to the high school tomorrow, and he's speaking to the 9th and 10th and the 11th and 12th graders, and he's doing a special leadership assembly for the leaders of the school. And so I don't know if you guys all heard, but we're extending our invitation to all of you. So hopefully you guys can attend. If not, of course we
I'll
understand.
see you at 10:30.
And also we are doing Valentine's Day flower. They're like little notes you can give them to students, and it's kind of like a gram. You write it, you write your little message, and it's getting attached to a flower when we're handing those out. So that's what we have today.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome to stay, or you're welcome to leave. It's your choice, ladies.
Thank you, girls.
Good night.
Sharon, are you preparing, or are you next up?
I thought of next up. Well, you tell me.
We have board member vacancy, and then you come on.
Okay. So I'm preparing.
Okay, there are 4 options, but only 3 choices from what I understand. Would you like to share with the board our options and our choices?
Yes, absolutely. So when there is a vacancy on the Board of Education,
Gotta talk
there
up.
are 4 options for filling that vacancy. The first option is that the Board of Education has the express power under the education law to make an appointment to fill the vacancy up through the next regular annual election. That's the first option. The second option available to the board is to hold a special election in the middle of the year to fill that vacancy. That would be the second option. The third option is simply to leave the vacancy vacant until the next annual meeting and election. And the fourth option, which really isn't a choice of the board, is that under certain circumstances, the BOCES, in this instance, the Eastern Suffolk BOCES district superintendent does have the authority under the education law to make an appointment. While that action is rarely done, it is a right that is given to the BOCES superintendent under the education law. So again, with respect to the board, as you said, Madam President, has 3 choices, which is to leave the seat vacant, appoint someone, or hold a special election.
So I'm coming to the board and like to know your thoughts on the 3 options that we were presented. So Lee, you want to start off your thoughts?
Well, I went through this once before, and it's the utmost, especially at this point, no disrespect, but two of you are new, and you don't know the budget process. I'd say you think you know, but you don't. And Mylan's your second year, and I know for a fact that it's taken me a number of years to really understand the budget process. So I think it'd be horrific for us not to pick someone on. And I think the right people to bring on are people that have experience with the budget. There are 4 people in this room, I'm looking at right now, that understand and know the budget. 2 are sitting there, and 2 are right there. The process, I think, we're going to do, correct me if I'm wrong, is they have to write a letter
Letter of intent.
of intent saying that they have to, mine doesn't work.
It's got a lab.
No, we're just having a discussion.
Right, well,
But if that is one of the options,
right, to have a letter
would
of,
be,
a letter
that
of
would be
intent,
part of the letter of intent.
to apply for this position. That would run out in May. But I think it was so wrong, so wrong, not to bring on someone with more knowledge. because, new board members I see, cost us a fortune in getting letters, just the attorney. I know some of the answers, because I've been around, but everyone needs to know it, and they don't want to hear it from me, so you ask the attorney. So I can't imagine to do right by this district, right by the community, this budget, not to have someone with past experience. That's my feeling.
Nick, would you like to share your feelings?
One thing I definitely,
I can't hear you.
Cost.
Right. No, that's not really on the plate.
No, I know, I understand that, I'm just saying that the special, just so the public is aware, the cost of a special election would be somewhere in the $20,000 to $25,000 range. So that's not something I'm in favor for sure.
I only see two viable options.
As far as, I have no problem with looking at candidates who wish to be appointed to the board. I don't know, from there we have to have a discussion as to who was and what they bring to the table. Other than that, I'm comfortable if we, feel like we can, in discussing the candidates and discussing it moving forward. I'm also comfortable with the fact that, leaving the seat vacant for it's only a small period of time, and just so the public is also aware, whoever gets elected at the election will take that seat immediately. They do not wait until July like the normal process. So it's not like we're waiting until July for this person to come on. They would take the seat immediately following the election. Even possibly being sworn in, next day or that night.
So what are you saying?
I'm saying that I'm comfortable with exploring both options, whether we look at candidates and we find someone that we think can help us moving forward. If that's the case.
We need a 3 vote if we, the 3
Yes,
of us
I'm aware
have
of
to
that.
decide.
If that's what
We can make that
everybody,
decision tonight.
if that's what everybody feels
We're
comfortable
not
with.
making that
looking
decision
at-
tonight, I'm just putting out information that we do,
We have to wait 2 more weeks to decide if we want to do this.
we're
We're just discussing right now. We're hearing what everybody wants to say. We haven't made a
We're
decision.
not appointing anybody tonight.
We're not-
We're not appointing anybody tonight, but are we going in a direction tonight? Are we going to interview people?
First, we're listening to
Well,
what
right now,
everybody
we're having
says
a
before we
discussion.
decide the
You're
right
jumping
direction.
ahead. I want to hear what everybody has to say.
I would be comfortable with either of the 2 options other than a special election.
Absolutely.
Depending on what
There's only
everybody
2
else.
viable options.
Right.
Right, your thoughts?
Yes, I'm leaning towards leaving it vacant, but I'm open to discussion.
I'll have to agree with you both because I'm okay if it's vacant, but I'm okay interviewing candidates for the seat. I guess it's just a matter of us agreeing on a particular person, and it might be difficult. So I'm foreseeing that, code it cannot be.
Very easy.
So, in the possibility of it not being filled, I'm okay having the seat vacant.
Yeah, I mean, I am too. I think it would be, not in our best interest to see who's interested and see who wants to be a part of the process.
Right.
Whatever reason we can't agree, then we can't agree. If we can't agree on somebody and that person is presented, then we think they bring something to the table to help us and help the district moving forward, then we should look at that.
Okay, so then how do we go forward if we are opening up to entertaining letters of intent? What is the procedure?
Well, unfortunately, the education law does not really provide any guidance as to the procedure to follow if you're looking towards making an appointment. So, and we don't have a policy on it. So that would be just you deciding what would work administratively, practically.
Okay, so,
Ask the, put it out there that you're accepting, letters of interest, time frame, those are things you might want to.
so then my question would be to you, so then what's the date of Friday before our next meeting? What's the date?
Friday before our next meeting.
Friday before next
What's the date
meeting.
for that?
19th, Friday, February 19th.
So my recommendation would be to have letters submitted by the 19th. We could even do, come in early that Tuesday for exec session and discuss the candidates.
Or interview the candidates? Well, why would we discuss candidates? We should be interviewing candidates and then make a decision.
Can't they just provide us with what they can do for us in
We
a
didn't
sort
do
of
that
like a
last
resume
time.
type? Well, this isn't last time, this is this time. I mean, like to see who the people are. If we feel like we have two candidates that maybe we want to bring in
Well, see,
that
that's the thing,
interview.
is say we get, say, for argument's sake, we get
Bring in 10
five people, well, it's gonna
people.
take us time to read through the five. Then we're gonna have to narrow it down to the two.
Yeah.
And then once you narrow it down to two, then of course you invite the people forward for an interview. But I can't anticipate all that happening in one day,
No.
unless we do it on Monday, and then, bring back the two candidates on Tuesday in the exec session for an interview. Well, special meeting on Monday to read the letters, and then Tuesday we'll have the, interview.
That's not exact session.
I know Mondays are rough for me too.
We can always have we can always do a special meeting afterwards if we find two candidates that apply. We can have it later in that week. Let's look at everybody on Tuesday, have everybody in, and we come up with one or two, we only have one person we want to interview.
Exactly.
And that means two people.
Exactly. I'm just throwing an arbitrary number of five.
Yeah, whatever it is. Let's get their information, look at it, come up with who we want to bring in an
So now,
interview.
do we put a
want to-
public notice out for, February 19th? Hopefully, how do we, market that?
The only problem is the only outlet I have only hits our parents. So you wouldn't be able to let the community know via, I mean, our website obviously is open to the public, but the only school messenger outlet that I have only hits parents and faculty. It wouldn't actually go just for our 28,000 residents that we serve. So we might have to put something in the local paper. And I don't know when that deadline is to you, Andrea?
They're on Fridays. So we could actually put probably something in the Suffolk News. Probably, I could get the ad together tomorrow, submit it. It's not gonna be published until the following, it's not gonna be enough time.
So how else do we,
Oh, actually, if I get it in, it should be in for the next,
Tuesday.
it'll be, well, they don't publish on Tuesday, they publish on Thursdays and Fridays.
So we go in.
It would be on the 18th that it would get published.
Maybe I have to double check.
Well, why don't we just do it the best we can in terms of the care of,
Do they have a website, Suffolk News?
I think you have to buy that. I don't think everyone would get it. I think you have to
people
buy
have
it.
to subscribe to it, so it's not really available to the general public.
my opinion is if anybody has any real strong interest in the Board of Ed, they would have already been aware of this anyway, but I understand.
We
they
have
have
to
to-
pay for that?
We'd have to pay for an ad.
How much for that was?
Get the education person to do an article. I'll say something stupid. And then I'll just say, we also have a vacancy.
By the way, this
We'd like-
resolution, please take us up
We'd
to
like
prayer.
to, Phil, if you know anybody in the district, please apply by this date.
So can you put something in your email to say, please forward this to your neighbors and so forth? I mean, that's another way of getting the word out there. Put it on the website,
Website's a public domain.
Everybody spread the word.
put it on your website.
On the 19th.
Put an email, please forward this to, your members, parents that are not, don't have children in our district, please forward that. I mean, I can't see any other way quickly to
It
get a
has to be a
message out.
consensus.
But what if there's not?
Then it would be vacant.
And then people that don't want to win, basically.
Then it would be vacant.
The other thing
Or
is.
the
Or
BOCES
maybe-
commissioner could appoint
Maybe
someone.
the BOCES commissioner will come in on that day. Maybe we can
District superintendent.
just,
BOCES district superintendent.
maybe, he can become aware of what's going on. How do you make him aware of what's going on in the district?
Well, I think that, if there was such a situation where you didn't get business done that you needed to get done, then, I believe that the superintendent would probably reach out to the BOCES superintendent.
Yeah, that would be Linda's job.
The other thing too about filling the seat is that we're giving this person,
Basically, the budget cycle, I'm really interested in, because once again, I the auditor spoke to me about it for last year. That they know absolutely nothing. The auditor said that to me. What can I do? I said, well, they're over the class.
I don't know anything about the budget.
A board member, when we were being audited, all board members had to speak to the auditor. The auditor came to me and said that there was a board member that didn't know anything about budgets. I I said, well, they'll offer the class. Because it takes time. And they said that about me when I started. I didn't know anything about it. And that's the part that I think that this board, just because they don't want to, for whatever personal reasons they might have, or not personal reasons, or whatever their philosophy is, not to do this is wrong, because it's not about us. It's not about them. It's not about politics. It's about a multi-million-dollar budget, and it's about the community. End of story. That's all this is about. And not to do it is not representing Connetquot investment. It's my philosophy. I've been around long enough. I know what people know, what they don't know. I get it. It took me a long time to get it. And I know this board doesn't have it. That's not being disrespectful. It's being knowledgeable. They don't have the knowledge.
Sounds a little disrespectful.
You know, well, you might say that
Well,
because you
that's
want
why
to.
we have Sharon here to walk us through the
Sharon's gonna earn her
process.
money. Sorry,
Sure,
Sharon.
you'll be here every day finding out everything.
Lee, when you don't.
Lee, I do my homework, Lee.
Yeah,
I don't know
Lee,
what you're insinuating, but
I'm insinuating the facts.
Let's
I
go.
didn't
Lee,
know.
All right,
you
so,
don't,
all
wait,
right.
you don't have a lot of
All right,
knowledge on a lot of
so
things.
now
We
are we-
never throw that in your face.
let's go. Let's move
Okay,
on.
you
You
can.
never throw that in your
I don't
face,
mind telling me. It's what I'll learn.
You said
All
you were
right,
open
I
to anything.
think
I don't know why we're.
Can we just solidify what
Yeah,
we're
absolutely.
thinking?
The 19th.
We're gonna
the
put it out there, letters have to be in, no, that's our deadline, we're not accepting anything after the 19th.
Absolutely.
The board will then get via email the notices of intent, and then on Tuesday, since we'll have our personal time to look at these letters, we can then come in on Tuesday and have questions ready. So that will leave a little bit of time, and then we can maybe make an appointment during the week to interview, I'd say, 2 top candidates for that. I would narrow it down to 1 and narrow it down to 2.
I'm not
Unless
sure
you
what you
guys.
want to do with the person. We may, after getting your information, say that this is the best person. You don't know.
Exactly.
You don't know how
I
the
mean-
process is going to go until you see who applies.
Yeah, and the other thing is too, we're actually giving this person exposure for the next couple of months too, so we wanted to make sure that it does represent us and is a nice fit for us.
What's the deadline, February 19th?
February
What time, 4 o'clock?
I'd say 12 o'clock, since we can shoot time to send us the letters.
I think it's usually close of business,
Well, then we'll do it Thursday, because we should be able to, I mean, let's, we have it on Monday. Are you guys okay getting it on Monday, the letters? Okay, so then we'll forward it, okay.
3:30 on Friday.
Okay, so 4 o'clock deadline on Friday, and then
Is
an
your
email
office
forward
still first?
any of the letters.
Is the office Yes. closed?
Yeah, actually, you guys here? It's the
Is it
vacation.
closed? 19th?
Anybody here? It's vacation?
No, Monday is the deadline.
No, wait, Friday the 19th, no.
Is that our holiday?
Yes.
It's Chris, is that our holiday?
Yes.
So it's gonna be Thursday.
Thursday the 18th.
18th.
Thursday the 18th.
What's the holiday?
Thank you, John.
Oh.
Yeah, John did my homework.
Okay, Sharon, you're next, honey.
Does that tell us what the rest of that?
These are the topics I'd like to discuss tonight. Fiscal stress, some components of the revenue budget, a revised budget calendar, which is just changing one of the dates for the first draft of the expenditure budget, and the establishment of a capital reserve. Okay, so the first topic is fiscal stress. The Office of the State Controller uses two different categories to evaluate school districts' level of financial stress. These are external property values in the district, enrollment, how budget vote trends have been going, graduation rate, and FERPL free or reduced price lunch participation. The financial indicators are how substantial fund balances, including reserves, operating deficits, if there's a low liquidity, meaning cash, and what the short-term debt looks like for a school district, if they're financing their operating expenditures via short-term debt. there are 3 designations of fiscal stress. You don't want to have any of them. We actually have the no designation, that's a good thing. So either you're susceptible to fiscal stress if you score within that percentage category. Moderate stress is the next level, and significant stress is the highest level. So this is just a graphical display of what I just said. Here's the no designation, and that's Connetquot over there in the green. We have a 16.7% score for the last 2 years, based on those indicators that I went through. I want to move on to revenue now. Here's the current year revenue budget in this first column. This is the working draft as of right now. Have not plugged in appropriated fund balance. So without appropriated fund balance, we are looking at an overall revenue budget increase of only $242,000. But that is distorted by not having any appropriated fund balance. We have that every year. Now I want to hone in on state aid. These are the figures per the executive budget proposal. This is the 15-16 amount. Here is what is on the executive proposed budget for 16-17. And that is the increase, 3.6 million. So that's executive proposal to executive proposal. There will also then be the adoption of the state budget, call that the final budget or the legislative budget. So we have this situation again where our state aid increase of this 3.64 million is hinged on our compliance with Education Law 3012D, which is requiring that we have an EPPR plan in place by September 1st. Oops.
By when?
By September 1st.
It's not July?
Well, you have to, by July 1st, have your plan in submittable form, that there are signatures on it, that it's ready to go. It should be submitted by July 1st in order to meet that September 1 deadline. And once again, the increase has been coupled with this requirement. Now, the tax levy cap calculation.
I'm sorry, Sharon.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Are you aware of, and may not be, I don't know exactly how, is it coupled because that's what it said in the law from last year? So it's possible that state legislature could change that with the upcoming budget? We don't know that.
Except it's in the governor's proposal right now.
It's in the governor's proposal,
Yes.
the new proposal for his new plan for this year
Yes.
also covers it.
Yes.
And we have no indication of whether there would be waivers again from SED if you're negotiating.
It doesn't feel like there will be.
Actually, the legislative, I'm sorry,
Thank you.
at the legislative breakfast the other day, they were out and out asked the question whether they believed that they would look at 3012D, and they said no. They don't see the need for it. I'm trying to think who actually said it. Do you remember who actually said it? Flanagan said it's not on the table to discuss at all.
It's on my table.
Now the tax levy cap calculation. This is, I don't expect you to be able to read this. This is just the page that comes off of the state controller's website. Here it's blown up. It's just the math behind the calculation I'll walk you through. The basic principle of the tax levy cap is that we can't adopt a budget which is greater than 2% or the CPI, whichever's less, except there are some exclusions that are allowed. I touched on this in the last presentation. The exclusions are if the increase in the pension contribution rate for either the teacher's retirement system
for the employees' retirement system is greater than 2%, that portion which is greater than 2% would contribute to an exclusion, allowing your rate, your levy to be higher. But there's actually a decrease in both of those pension contribution rates for 16, 17, so those exclusions do not apply, which means that will not be raising the tax levy cap calculation. These are just the steps of the math to walk you through it. You begin with last year's levy, which is that 120.7 million at the top. Then you apply a tax-based growth factor, which is particular to your town, and it means the brick and mortar addition to assessed value that happened in the properties in the district. So that's the factor, 0.0008. We're adding in pilots received in the current year, and then subtracting out last year's capital levy exclusion, which was 703,000. Here's the allowable levy growth factor, which you may have read about in the paper, down to less than 1%, closer to 0 than it is to 1%. You just subtract out the pilots receivable, our best estimate for what the 16-17 pilots will be, which is payment in lieu of taxes, special arrangements that the town and the IDA make with businesses to attract them in. They allow them a special payment instead of taxes. We estimate what 16-17 will be based on the current. That's really the best estimate we have to go on. So then we come down to this subtotal, which is the total levy limit before exclusions. And this is our current capital levy exclusion, the one exclusion we can have for this year since we can't have the pension exclusions. And that's where we are, at a 0.08% increase. So you can see we're at 120.8 last year, 120.7. It's virtually zero. The draft could change, as you know, I fine-tuned the calculation, but it probably will not change that much. This is the budget calendar that I wanted to run through with you. January 26th, I did the fiscal climate presentation. Today, fiscal stress and the revenues, the first draft of the revenues, where we went through projected state aid, the tax levy cap calculation, and I will be talking about the establishment of the capital reserve in a moment. On February 23rd, the next meeting this month, there will be a presentation by someone, a different assistant superintendent, on staffing, program, and enrollment. And then we will have our line-by-line expenditures without those staffing changes yet incorporated from the previous presentation on March 8th. Now, I just need the okay of the board. That's a deviation from the budget guidelines. We got a little ambitious this year and said we'd have our first draft of the expenditures tonight, which we never do. It's always late March, so if you would just give a nod that this is okay to revert to our more standard calendar, thank you. And then we'll move into a line-by-line, including staffing changes here on March 22nd, and a Q&A. This will be a second draft on April 5th. By that time, we'll have the state budget, the final, the legislative estimates, and we'll discuss the impact of any changes in the adopted budget to our preliminary proposal. And then these are the state deadlines. We have the budget adoption on April 19th, do or die, no safety date this year. And we'll have our budget hearing on May 10th, and the statewide budget vote and school board election on May 17th. So this is the last topic, the establishment of a new capital reserve. In order to establish a capital reserve, and we've been discussing over the last several months a need to continue our addressing of capital needs throughout the district for capital projects. This particular kind of reserve requires voter authorization, So, what I'll be looking for, next meeting on February 23rd is the authorization from the board to place a proposition to establish a capital reserve, 2016 capital reserve, on the ballot. So we won't have a separate vote, so we won't incur those costs, but that's what I will be putting on the next agenda. Pardon me? And now John's up. John's in red here.
So one of the things when looking at a district of this size is cost of ownership. You know, we have multiple buildings throughout the district that require us to maintain them. We can either do it out of our general fund, which doesn't allow us the ability to get any kind of state aid, or we can do it through a capital project and recover a large portion of it through state aid. So the idea of doing a lot of this work in a capital project is obviously cost beneficial to the district. So we've been thinking about some of the buildings, some of the work that we're doing now, and some of the work that we'd like to see continue moving forward. So I've just broken down a few items for each of the buildings to give everybody just a general idea.
John, can you come here so that they won't be too? Is
Sure.
that all right?
I don't care.
And here's the regards to things.
So the first building I have listed up here is Idle Hour. One of the things with the construction of all districts, all buildings, is there's concerns for abatement. This room here is a perfect example. If you look at the floor, it's actually in good condition, but it's a 9x9 tile. So it's made of asbestos. It's in great shape, there's no problems with it. If there were a problem with it, if there were one or two tiles popping up, it would cost the district approximately $5,000 to $7,000 to make those simple repairs. I could do it out of the general fund and get absolutely no reimbursement whatsoever. If we did it as a capital project, the work would probably cost us about $10,000 to $12,000, and of which we would get 70% back. So the same cost to get rid of all the problems within the entire unit instead of just doing piecemeal repair work. So you're going to see abatement projects at every single building because it is a large portion of what I think needs to be done. Idle Hour, we have a composite floor in the gymnasium. It's a rubber surface. It's got some creases in it. It's something that the cost to redress it right now would be a little difficult, so it's another opportunity to do something there. The divider at Idle Hour, it's probably original to the building. It's time for it to be addressed and replaced. I'm not going to read through every single one of them, but they're up here just so everybody can see it. Once again, when you get down to Boston, you'll see abatement projects.
Can I ask
I'm
a question?
sorry. Yep.
At Idle Hour, is that an old, the original gym floor? Is that how old is that?
It's a composite floor. It's a rubber surface to it. I don't know the age on it. I was actually looking for the manufacturer information to try to find out, but I've been told it's over 20 years of age. And it's a composite rubber. It's not a wood floor that you could refinish and get multiple years beyond it. It's a one shot.
So you can put down a regular floor?
We have to do a cost analysis. Once again, this is nothing more than preliminary. Obviously, we have to create a bond committee to discuss each individual item. It's just some ideas and things that I've noticed as I've walked through the buildings over the past several months. But we definitely do a cost analysis as to what's best.
John, I noticed that on some of the buildings, you're doing the LED lighting and controls.
Yep.
That's a cost-effective measure, right?
Without a doubt. One of the buildings in particular that we've looked at right now is the high school gymnasium. It would cost about $60,000 to do those lights, change them over from the current metal halide lighting over to LED fixtures. The return on investment on that is approximately 2 years without even including state aid. So I've actually included in this year's budget one of our spaces to do the LED lighting. We can do it internally. But once again, that's us doing the work that's not looking for the state aid reimbursement on it. But the cost effectiveness without using state aid is still there.
Now you also mentioned about the auditorium, right? We just did some work in there.
The auditorium at the high school.
Yes, I'm sorry, correct, yes.
It's a room that I've heard a lot of concerns about. It's very it's obviously a great space, large space, but it's fairly generic. Acoustics, they don't do a great job with the acoustics in there. You can actually stand at the back of the room. Excuse me. And let's do what you want to. don't take this one? I like that.
Use.
Thank you. The sound actually projects the opposite direction. So if you stand at the sound room, it projects up to the stage. So you have to put some acoustical panels in there to redirect everything appropriately.
So are you also talking about a little bit of a paint job in there too, when it screws things up?
Paint jobs we can do internally. When we start talking about acoustical panels and those type of things, we start talking about a lighting system, start talking about a sound system, we start talking about tens of thousands of dollars for each one, if not substantially more. That's beyond our scope. So,
And what do you anticipate the costs on those particular items that you just mentioned, just a ballpark on that?
are we talking about the auditorium now, or is LED?
No auditorium, sorry, yeah, just the auditorium.
I actually have a meeting with Mr. Lasher on Friday. He's looking at the lighting controls, just trying to resurrect the lighting controls we have that have fallen into disrepair over the years. To have a contractor to come in right now would be about $17,000 to $20,000. And that's not any updates at all, that's just a refurbishment of the old equipment.
Okay, and how much did we spend on the auditorium already?
Well, it was done as an insurance claim, so
Okay.
our obligation is going to be the deductible, which is $5,000. Yeah, so,
So basically it's 5,000 out of pocket, and then we're gonna obviously add on more to,
well, if we're talking about the auditorium, I mean, we'd have to do a full assessment of it. I mean, I don't think it's something where we're talking about just a, you know, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. I think we're gonna be in there for, it depends on,
Right.
you know, on the committee and whether the board wishes to, you know, to explore it and to what extent. But I couldn't even venture a number at this point.
That's 70% we talked about across the board on these projects, or is it very by project when you get?
When we look at these projects here, because they're attached to the building,
Right.
they all would be eatable. When we get to stuff like in the transportation and the administrative building, which I don't have anything in here included, they may not be eatable if we can't attach it to Sycamore or something else.
Does that percentage stay the same as far as available, or does the percentage change depending on the project?
It's a blended number, that's what our number is, but it would have to be blended. It would be a little bit less than that, but I can't tell you exactly.
Yeah, I was just curious as to, you know, one is, if something is covered at 40%, something else is covered at 80%, or how that works.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Sharon. It's either,
There's a
it's,
whole reimbursement rate depending on what work's been done in the past,
Oh, okay, so
the use of the
it's
space.
varies depending
It does
on-
vary.
Okay.
It might be safer to say,
No, I don't have to give it, I just wanted to know if it varied or not depending on what it was.
yeah, it becomes a blended rate afterwards. That's our maximum rate on any project. And
That's
it will vary, it'll vary.
Okay, thank you.
I just have a question about tennis courts at the middle schools. They're not in there?
No, actually, when we get to the administrative reports later on, I'll talk about the tennis courts. They're actually going out to bid in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. That's going to be done first and foremost. So
The
we're-
okay, so this presentation is about the 2016 proposed capital project.
Right.
And just
The
general ideas.
reserve for that.
Right, just general ideas.
And then John's gonna do a presentation later about the 2014. That's going on now.
As far as the exhaust fans at Boston, what areas would those be in place?
There's a couple different buildings that you're going to see exhaust fans. Exhaust fans, they typically run, you know, $3,000 to $5,000. We have hundreds and hundreds throughout the district. Most of them are 20 years or older. It would be, depending on the history of each one of them, we would address it. But once again, this is really broad strokes, just to throw out some ideas, that's all it is. So Sycamore, obviously, we go back to abatement projects. Auditorium, that auditorium is used for a whole lot of different things. I've heard a lot of people talk about air conditioning in the auditorium, just a topic for consideration. We do have a walk-in freezer and refrigerator over there that is, it's an older unit. It's definitely something that should be looked at and addressed. Pearl, once again, you're going to see abatement projects each and every building because there's no shortage of that we can do in the district. Duffield, it's got the auxiliary gym. The walls on it are corrugated metal that needs some attention. So I have that up there, exhaust fans and once again abatement. Slocum is an interesting place. We have a historical building, so as such, there's some sections of that building that are older. There's a fair amount of abatement that can be addressed in that building.
Currently, how old are the boilers in there now?
Best guess 25 years, but I don't know
So
the
it's
commission.
reached its life.
It has, and boilers, the specific boilers that they don't make parts for them anymore. They've rebuilt them multiple times, they've replaced various sections of them. They're still suspect.
How are they doing now currently?
They're
Yes, sir.
suspect. We watch them daily. Yeah, plain and simple. They're working, but we watch them daily. The old entrance at Slocum, it could use some sprucing up along with, some other things. And there's one small section of roof, for whatever reason, did not get done in all the projects. It's over 2 classrooms and an office, so there's about 3,000 square feet of roofing up at Slocum as well. Cherokee, the reason why you'll see rooftop heating units, there's 3 of them on there. I'm going to look for other ways to do these sooner, but it's something that's come up in the last couple of weeks. I found that we've had multiple problems up there with the heating, and there's never been any accommodations for repairing them. It's not in the 2014 project at this point. We're going to price it out, we're going to make determinations, and see if we can incorporate it. But in the meantime, those are the type of things that we're going to continuously bring up as needing repair. Middle schools, the individual, in the LGI, both Oakdale, Bohemia, and Northampton, we have approximately 230 light fixtures. 230 fluorescent bulbs in the ceilings of those auditoriums, of those LGIs. It's crazy. The lights are either on or off. We should be putting some sort of lighting control on there. We should be putting LEDs on there that are going to last more than a typical 2 years, so we're not up there spending all the time and effort and the labor to repair these light bulbs. And if you go up there to any of these buildings right now, there's probably 30 or 40 that are out. It's a cumbersome task to climb up into the roof, up onto the catwalks and change them. So changing them over to LEDs would certainly be a cost savings, and it would also be a savings towards labor moving forward as well.
Now that we're on Oakdale, and we only just worked tonight, reminded me when we did our building walkthrough, I know Craig had a huge issue with all the air conditioners running on that one side of the building. Is there anything that we can do to try to address that problem?
There's a lot of things that we're doing. One of the things that we're doing in this project right now is we're going to increase ventilation from the basement all the way through. In addition, we're going to be looking at dehumidifiers as opposed to air conditioners. So instead of having the air conditioner running nonstop throughout the entire, or for the better part of the school year, dehumidifier is very limiting work.
And how many gallons of water does that contain? Because now somebody's got to empty that.
It's just like a trash can. If that's what we need to do, if that's going to be a more effective way of doing it, we're going to start assessing it and making that determination.
So how is that any cheaper than running an AC?
Oh, it's substantially less draw. I mean, it's probably a tenth of the draw. So,
Is there a way to, are there any systems available in a dehumidification system that are self-draining or can drain into a
well, in essence, that becomes an air conditioner.
Exactly.
You can put an air conditioner, you can put split systems. I mean, there's a whole lot of different ways that you can have condensate lines that can run. You can put, inside the ceiling mounted dehumidifiers and have weep holes outside without a doubt.
When these fill, they shut off anyway, so it's not, you're not worrying about overflow. They shut off once they're full, right?
Yeah, well, depending on the types. I mean, we're not talking about household dehumidifiers, we're talking about commercial grade and everything else. But once again, it's nothing more than a starting point of the conversation. By no means is this saying this is what we have to do. It's just some of the things that we've been looking at saying, we need to think about it and keep mentioning that moving forward so that there's no surprises when it happens.
So wouldn't that be included in this scope of work that you're mentioning now? Would it be part of this as well, or?
What, dehumidifiers and everything else, it could certainly be included. Once again, this is not an end-all list. I mean, this is nothing.
So then definitely we
more.
should entertain including that, because it is a serious problem.
Without doubt, yeah. And when we get down to the point, if the board puts a resolution forth and the community approves it, there's going to be a lot more conversation, and all of this will be fleshed out at that point.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
I have look into an energy savings bond also.
We are looking into energy performance work now as well.
Some of that might go into that, changing lighting, stuff like that.
It could, there's no doubt about it. It depends on the speed and the rate at which we can do one thing versus another. There's a whole lot of assessment that needs to take place before you can do an energy performance contract. you don't need board approval, so it changes it because there are guaranteed savings. One of the things that we're looking at, or that I've been looking at extensively, is to do what they call a cogeneration system, something where you have a system that will run on gas, which is very low cost at this point. It will generate all the electricity and all the hot water for a building. In addition, it can also run air conditioning. So I have not done any kind of real true cost analysis yet. We haven't really brought in outside contractors to crunch numbers, but there's a chance of doing a cogen system at high school and both middle schools that will take us pretty much off the grid completely. You know, not to mention lighting. Lighting's a little tricky because from what I understand, the last time this district did an energy performance contract, a lot of the light fixtures in the district were changed. They went from T11 to T8 fluorescent, and because we're still paying those off, there would be no state aid on those elements to do them now before their life expectancy.
When does that expire? When does that expire?
I think that was closed out 2009. Yeah, so
Yeah,
quite a ways.
yep, sure
Quite
are.
a ways. So another 12 years before we can even look at stuff that was already addressed. The district can do those things, but it's not going to get aid.
Right away on it.
So we need to make those, cost and assessments as well. Ronkonkoma, similar things as OBMS. The only other thing that's different is the freight elevator. We have the warehouse downstairs at Ronkonkoma. The amount of times it goes up and down, it's in need of repair. So, and then the high school, once again, you see abatement projects, LED lighting, as I pointed out to the other secondary campuses, auditorium refurbishment, library carpet. We just did the library as an insurance claim. They would not cover the carpet. It did a steam cleaning and everything else, but it is in serious need of attention. It's 12 years old. But once again, to go in there and do a carpet, it would probably be $50,000, $60,000 for me to put that as a general service line in this year's budget and not get any aid back on it is a pretty daunting, request to the board. So that's the whole purpose of this. And then the locker room showers as the last one. So work in process at this point.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
So Sharon, are we allowed to ask you questions? You mentioned the $3.6 million. Will that be incorporated into the budget on the revenue side? The one that's attached to 3012D?
Yes.
That will be included.
And we would have less fund balance at the end of the year.
Something we discussed last year.
Yes, I remember you last year.
So that's a substantial.
Same day.
Sorry. I'll apologize now for probably what I said last year.
The other thing also
Although I will be
is,
saying it again.
again, with the federal, the number of opt-outs that can again use us some aid as well.
Yeah.
But that's not normally incorporated into the general fund budget.
No, I know that, but I'm just saying.
That's a title fund issue, so that's actually grants. So we would apply for the grants for the whatever we're allocated and allotted. And if we were to not get that, we would not be able to do any of those projects that are in the grant. But that's not part of the general fund.
No, I know it's a separate, question, but I'm
Yeah.
just thinking that's other monies too that we could potentially lose, so I'm just trying to get a grasp of.
Yes, about $400,000. And that's only the first blush too. I mean, we'll present that, almost that exact same presentation again, right, Sharon?
Oh, yes, many
Once we
times.
get the final run.
Yes. And as the expenditure budget is developed.
So Sharon, are other districts including that monies in their budget, or on the revenue side?
Yes, they are. I've spoken with many colleagues, raised my hand at a meeting of about 40 to 50 business officials, and every single person is.
They're all taking the money?
Yes.
So meaning that they're signing the 3012D, they're taking the money?
They are going through the process to comply with the law.
There are some districts on Long Island that have already negotiated successfully 3012 plans. Longwood being one of them, where we just were the other day for legislative breakfast. They already have it They did not take the hardship waiver. They went and they negotiated a successful plan already. So there are some districts.
Do you know any of the particulars on that?
It's online. We can actually, in fact, I know that Dean has actually gone through it, because all of those plans, if they get approved, get put on the state ed website, and they also get put on the individual district's website.
So Dean, can you share that with the board, so we have an idea? I mean,
Yeah, we can board the plans.
Just one more thing about the capital reserve. This is something that I'm asking for you to authorize to be established. It's another segmented piece of fund balance. It's like a savings account. We have other reserves. This is capital reserve, but this particular reserve has to go out for board approval. This will be years down the road that we will be ready for another capital project. We will be using an amount of surplus fund balance, should there be any, to put into the capital reserve at the end of this year, next year, the following year. So it's a process, and that's what the capital reserve is. We wouldn't be moving right into another new bond. We're planning ahead.
How much money are you planning on putting in the reserve
I would think,
for this particular?
I would think 9.5 million. We've typically gone out for $21 million bonds the last few times. We're finding now the bids are coming in higher, costs have gone up, and there's a substantial amount of work that needs to be done. So I would think that would bring us closer to the $30 million bond proposal down the road. No, the reserve would only be for a maximum quantity of 9.5 million. Sort of anticipating the unaided portion is the principal of it. Because we get the other 2/3 about, but, it could be closer to 55%. And then,
Our portion.
we have the reserve, yes, exactly. Okay, thank you, I'm so sorry.
thank you, Sharon.
You're welcome.
So, 2 weeks ago, I asked the board for their permission to write a resolution discussing a couple of things that the governor had put in his executive proposal for the budget. One of the things that I really am interested in seeing some advocacy on the behalf of the district is in the Parental Choice for Education Act. And Craig and I had an opportunity with a couple different folks that are in the audience right now to go to the legislative breakfast at Longwood. It's a very big, large gathering of educators and stakeholders that are really interested in what's going on in the legislative branch prior to all of our legislators going up and voting on and putting together the state budget. And really the voices of public education are heard in that room, and we try to hold the legislators who are there accountable for some of the decisions that they're making, or at least let them hear some of our voices. And one of the things that NYSBA, the New York State School Boards Association, actually had the executive director come and present to us at that meeting. And one of the things he asked us to advocate against is the Parental Choice in Education Act. So that was something we'd already discussed as the district, so we were a little bit ahead of NYSBA coming out and talking to us about it. So this is the resolution that I'm going to ask you folks to look at with me tonight and vote on whether or not you want to put your names to it and send it to our local legislators as well as our governor. I do need to tell you that our local legislators are asking for our help. They would like us to email, send messages to the governor about giving back our GEA. They need the voices. They're all ready. You saw in the paper, Senator Flanagan discussed that the line in the sand this year is end the GEA, and I'll give you some more information about that as we move forward, but they were really asking for our advocacy as parents, educators, and stakeholders to email, send mail, make phone calls to Governor Cuomo's office because they're ready to put the line in the sand, and they're hoping that they can get us to do that as well. So I'm just going to read this, and then I'm going to ask the board to let me know whether or not you want any changes to this.
I want the legal counsel to talk about it also. Isn't this what legal counsel said that boards are not supposed to get involved?
You have to speak louder, I can't hear you.
You can ask Ms. Moore. You want to just tell the board about our legal responsibilities as a board?
public about public issues surrounding public education and advocating, using public resources to advocate in favor of a particular position. So while it is certainly within the board's purview to inform the public about such issues as the superintendent has just discussed, there is a general prohibition against boards of education using public resources to advocate on political causes. So I just wanted the Board of Education to be mindful of that.
So my question would be, are we using any funds to do this?
Well, I would suggest that we email this to our local legislators, and so that really isn't using any local funds. I wrote this on my own, actually. Part of it I finalized last Saturday, that's why you see some changes. So, did we use funds? No, not really. So let me read, and then you folks can tell me if there's things you want me to amend. So whereas Article 11, Section 1 of the Constitution of the State of New York states, the legislature shall provide for the maintenance and support of a system of free common schools wherein all the children of the state may be educated. Furthermore, Article 11, Section 3 of the Constitution of the State of New York states, neither the state nor any subdivision thereof shall use its property or credit any public money or authorize or permit either used directly or indirectly in aid or maintenance other than for the examination or inspection of any school or institution of learning wholly or in part under the control or direction of any religious denomination or in which any denominational tenet or doctrine is taught. Whereas Governor Cuomo has proposed the Parental Choice in Education Act, providing the following distribution of New York State public funds. $70 million to families with incomes under $60,000 for a $500 tuition credit for attendance in a non-public school. $50 million to fund scholarships for low-income or other students to attend private or out-of-district schools. That's a typo. Tax credits to corporations and private donors for up to 75% of $1 million in donations. 75% of $1 million in donations that fund scholarships for private schools and out-of-district public schools. Whereas beginning with the 2010-11 school year and every year since, the state has deducted monies from the maintenance and support of New York State school districts under the guise of the gap elimination adjustment. Furthermore, the Connetquot Central School District of Islip has had deducted from its state aid the following sums of money. In 2010-11, $3,431,981. 2011-12, $6,834,216. 2012-13, $6,116,544. 2013-14, $5,747,378. Excuse me. 2014-15, $4,935,274. 2015-16, $3,123,673, for the sum total loss of $30,189,066 in state aid for maintenance and support of our public schools. Whereas the state of New York took the GEA away from schools in an effort to balance their fiscal condition, which was in a deficit, and now the fiscal condition of the state is in a funding surplus. Furthermore, the state of New York has not funded school districts at the level of funding mandated by its own foundation aid formula calculation since the 2009-2010 school year. Therefore, it is the conviction of the Board of Education of the Connetquot Central School District of Islip, that it is mandated by the Constitution of the State of New York to provide fiscal resources to all public schools, and the New York State Legislature should therefore return all monies withheld from New York State public schools as part of the gap elimination adjustment, as well as restructure the foundation aid formula to provide the appropriate funding for all public schools in the state. Furthermore, it is the conviction of the Board of Education that the basic tenets of Governor Cuomo's proposed Parental Choice in Education Act, wherein public funds would be credited to low-income families to offset the cost of tuition of sending their children to non-public schools, as well as tax credits for donations to scholarship funds for private schools, violates Article 11, Section 3 of the Constitution of the State of New York, by indirectly aiding any school or institution of learning wholly or in part under the control or direction of any religious denomination. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Connetquot Central School District of Iceland demands that the governor adequately fund New York State Public Schools by eliminating the GEA, restoring all previously deducted state aid, and restoring public school funding to the foundation aid formula. And be it further resolved that the Board of Education of the Connetquot Central School District of Iceland strongly opposes the governor's legislation, Governor's Program Bill Number 2, Parental Choice in Education Act, Education Scholarship, and the Program Tax Credit.
Good job. Go, yes. Anybody else? Thoughts?
All right, so I'm gonna need a
Sounds
vote on
good to
this.
me. Well said, Ms. Adams.
I need a motion to accept the
Motion.
resolution.
Second.
Resolution. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I love going into the New York State Constitution. You have no idea how exciting that is. Thank you.
Everybody.
All of our local legislators and our governor.
Legislators and my friend, Mr. Cuomo.
Okay, we're moving on to public comment. This section of the agenda gives the Board of Education an opportunity to recognize persons who wish to raise a question or to make a brief statement on items related to school matters. The time available will be limited to 3 minutes for one or more topics. At this public comment period, agenda items will be heard first. All other topics will be recognized as time allows. So step up to the podium, address the board president, and may address one or more topics at the time allotted. I'm going to give anyone a gentle warning in 30 seconds to let you know that your time is about to end.
I have a lot, so I'm just gonna read it all and then, you guys can do with that as you will.
How would you like to get your answers to those questions, or is just comments or other questions?
Oh, there's some questions, but afterwards, if you guys want to answer, I appreciate it. So I reviewed the attendance policy number 4710, and I saw some discrepancies. I have the policy here. I brought, the attendance policy up at prior meetings, and to date, we haven't gotten the feedback yet, that I asked for. I asked specifically what the appeals process entails. And in reading the policy, it simply states, file a written appeal for a hearing with the building principal within 10 school days of the date of the loss of credit notice. However, this loss of credit directly contradicts the first part of the policy that states, grading will not be used for disciplinary purposes, i.e. giving lower grades for absences unless the student's misconduct is directly related to his or her academic performance, plagiarism, for example. So, I'm going to say it again, you really need to look at this policy. Is this policy being reviewed or not? If so, when? If not, why? All right. Also, I still have not received an answer to the procedures that may or may not be policy. I was told some vague answers. I think Lee mentioned that it was site-based. I'm not really sure who mentioned it, but we can check the video. But nothing has been confirmed, and I still have no idea how parents can access these procedures. Once again, I'm going to ask, are these done differently in each school? Is there a book that can be reviewed? Is it online? When can parents see it? How can parents see this? The Board of Ed trustee vacancy, I just wanted to point out that if you leave it vacant, which I have no opinion on in either case, just remember that we do follow Robert's rules, which means you three will vote. You will no longer be allowed
That's
to vote.
incorrect.
What's that?
That's incorrect, and we'll address that after your questions.
Okay. Well, Robert's rule says that a president makes or breaks a tie, so if you vote,
It wouldn't be a tie, it's 3 people.
right, so that means you can't vote.
So I
Otherwise,
don't
you
vote on
couldn't,
anything?
otherwise that, you can discuss that afterwards, but check with the lawyers. I've done a lot of that with the PTA, so just wanted to make you aware of that, Martha, that you will not be, able to vote, otherwise you would cause, you would always cause a tie sometimes, or it would be,
I already got an answer to
Okay,
that
good.
question, so we'll
All right,
address it when we're done.
all right. Also, I wanted to make sure that, I saw that his name was taken off the website. and no notification was given to the general public except for tonight's meeting. So, I wanted to know when you guys discussed that, to talk about doing that. Because that would be part of open meetings law. So I wanted to find out when you guys discussed taking his name over there.
25 seconds.
How much? 26 seconds, all right. Also, has the FOIL paperwork been updated to allow for the option of electronic records at no cost if available? The AP weighted averages, if the test is not taken, is lowered. We spoke about this twice before. Still no resolution as to why a child should be punished for not taking the test that may or may not have any bearing on entering college, and is really just a cash cow. And I'm done, but I'll come back to this.
Anyway, I said, would you like to address the question as far as the voting is concerned?
I haven't had a chance to review it, but to my knowledge, that is not accurate with respect to boards of education. I will review it.
Because I did some research on it, and I didn't find in anywhere that someone was not allowed to place a vote. I mean, we can reconsider if it's a 2-2, but there was nothing saying that a board member can have, particularly the president.
Well, you did mention here in other board sessions that you do follow Robert's rules, and in Robert's rules, the president makes or breaks the clock.
I think that's on a general,
Well, there's no policy on it. I looked it up. We have no written policy in Connetquot that says anything about this being because it's a board-member board right now. So, so then if there's no policy, then you would follow Robert's rules, which is what you guys have stated many times here, so.
That he makes or breaks
So
the
just
tie,
look
like
into
she
it.
doesn't vote, or
I'm-
makes or breaks
and
the
there
tie,
is
like
no
her vote
tie, there's
counts
3
twice.
people.
No,
Make a tie.
right, but that means she can't, her vote can't count twice. So if it's a tie, say it was Craig and Mylin one way and you and Lee the other way, who's gonna break the tie now?
We
Mylin
reconsider.
made the tie, you
The
can't.
person of the opposing side would reconsider. They can
believe that's
reconsider,
what I
or we
read
can
as well.
table,
Well, that's,
we can table the, whatever the
I would
topic
check into
is.
That's what I read from the memorandum we got
That's
from
what I
the
read from the
attorney.
memorandum, if there's a two.
Someone who voted on the nay side could open their.
Exactly.
I'm sure you can do that, but Robert's rules says
Reconsidering.
that the president makes or breaks the tie.
Well, I think that's a.
All right, we'll have to look into it.
I will look into that. Find out, but I just saying. And I'll come back up for my other 3 minutes next time.
Hi folks, Ray Carter, Hotel, how you doing? All right, just a comment that, a suggestion. My comment is I think the district and the community is best served by having a 5th board member serve out the rest of the time. There are a number of meetings and anything come up, especially with the legacy. My suggestion is that you consider my good friend, former Vice President of the Board of America, for that position. It makes sense. He's the most recent board member who left the board. He served as Vice President, and out of the people who lost the last election, he got the most votes. Makes sense all right. So I hope you consider that. And on a chance I'm speaking out of turn, if he's not interested, I'm looking back there because I don't want to get it even alive. There are other people who are experienced and very willing to come back and serve on the board. So I hope you find a way to appoint the 5th board member, and I hope the first person you look at is Lou. Thank you.
So can you just have Leo Merrick and send his letter of intent? By Thursday, February 18th?
Hello, just wanted to ask what the procedure for testing for exams will be this year. Will it be the same as last year, where the children were allowed to go into a separate room and read? Or will any thought be given to allowing them maybe to draw or talk quietly?
Mr. Middleman is working with the principals right now, and he thought might be better off answering the question.
Yeah, so we're looking at following the same practices that we followed last year with regards to refusals. Parents would then, similar to the letter that Mrs. Adams sent out this earlier with regards to sending a letter to the building principal notifying them of the exams that the child is refusing. As far as the practices within the school, we are looking to maintain a testing environment, which is something that we're conscious of, but also not penalizing students who are refusing. So we're looking at alternative activities that fall within the educational realm. So we're in the process of going through those discussions now. So as soon as we have something more concrete, we'll put it out.
Sorry, I don't want to take your time.
my other question was, last year we had approximately 70% of the children that refused. Have you thought about possibly relocating the test takers instead of finding spots for the 70% since it's such a large number? I
That
would
is,
expect probably the same around this year, if not more.
That is something that we are discussing.
Okay.
We are looking at everything and reevaluating what happened last year to see what worked, what didn't work, and what we can make better for all those students.
Do you have an estimate of the numbers this year? I'm sorry, forget it.
What are the numbers this year?
There you go.
So far to date, 89.
89 students
89 students total.
out of 6,000, well, no, not 6,000,
Do you,
but
before you
3,000.
go, do you have any suggestions? I know you were very involved with a lot of different people in groups. Do you have any suggestions as far as other activities or things parents have spoken about that interested their children doing? Obviously, we can't do educational things that the children who are taking the test would miss out on, because that's obviously not fair. But has anything else come up that, obviously we could consider or talk about?
Some students have trouble sitting for that long period of time,
Jim?
just reading and being silent. Perhaps allowing them to talk quietly, maybe play games, not crazy games, but just something that's, within the realm of the educational laws. Perhaps an educational activity that doesn't give you a review sheet, something that's just not sitting and reading. It's hard for a lot of kids to do that for that long period of time.
What about gym? Some sort of
I
activity?
agree.
Other schools have gym, they have physical activities.
I think we have to be mindful of the children that are taking the test.
Absolutely. But I also
You
agree
can't penalize those kids that are taking the test. So I'm hearing games, I'm hearing gym time. That's not fair to those children that are taking the test. We have to be mindful of those children.
I agree, but I also don't think that we need to be so strict in mandating like we did last year and like many other districts are doing, that it's just reading, and that's, for some kids, is a punishment, sitting in a room for an hour and a half and being forced to read. And we're also taking away children's love of reading when you force someone to read. So I'm not saying it should be fun and games, but I think other things, whether it be crossword puzzles or drawing or coloring or other quiet activities, or being able to make up homework, or being able to do an extra credit project that a teacher might be able to provide, something else that can keep them quiet and still keep the testing environment for the other children, but not strictly reduced to, hey, you gotta sit and read, and there's no other option. Because I know they did it in my building, I brought it up to my principal, my superintendent, we're looking at other alternatives. We're not unfortunately getting directives from our superintendent, but our building is looking at other alternatives, because it's not good to force a child to, in my opinion, to sit there for an hour and 45 minutes, maybe even up to 2 hours with, this year, who knows how long the time is gonna be.
Right.
It's extended. If a kid's taking a test and we have kids sitting there, you could have a kid in a room for 3 hours and you can expect them, you have to do nothing but read for 3 hours. That's
Yeah,
absurd.
no good.
That's absurd to any child to punish them with a book. I would never punish a child with a book, and anybody that thinks they should punish a child with a book, has obviously not been in a classroom.
Well, the
I'm
other-
not saying we need to keep the testing environment and its integrity. I get that.
I worry about the 30% that's not taking the
And
test. That aren't
so
taking-
do I believe in parental choice, and I believe in the fact that the testing environment should be kept. But there are other activities other than reading, and that could, like I said, simple things like drawing and coloring or a crossword puzzle, or making up work, something quiet activity that we could do. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm a big believer in more than that. I would just like to see that minimally. I think personally we should take advantage of the time, and like at the middle school level, I think we should be bringing in the police officers and letting them talk to the rest of the kids about cyber stuff.
But then you have the 30% that's not included.
Well, that's
You have to- I
unfortunate.
think people are not being mindful of the 30%.
That's unfortunate. I'm not saying, but the world's not perfect. The world's not perfect, and I'm taking advantage of the fact that I have 70% of my kids that I can educate because I have time to do that.
Well, you don't know if it's
I'm not providing them with an
70%.
educational activity. That's just my opinion. I'm giving my opinion. I'm not saying that that's what we need to do or that's what, we're going to do. In my opinion, I would take advantage of time. I think personally, at that time, if I wanted to look at expanding the leader in me from Boston, that would be a perfect opportunity to take that program to some of the other elementary schools, to some of those kids, and try it out and see how it works with those kids.
Again, you're excluding the 30%.
But you do everything as a pilot and you exclude children. You exclude children when you do a pilot in one classroom and you don't do it in
The
another.
whole building in a pilot, or whatever it is.
What
or
I'm saying, you
the
can
whole
take
grade in
advantage
it.
of some of those children at that
You don't
time.
single out a child.
Well, I'm saying, listen, I'm just giving my opinion that at that time, I'd like to take advantage of looking at other programs that possibly do. I'm not saying it should be done. It's what my personally would do. Parents are making choices, that's fine. And listen, I get it. We live in a world where you have to make choices. And unfortunately, I think many parents try to force things on other people
I
because
just don't
they're
want to
thinking,
penalize the children that are taking the test. That's.
how is that a penalty? Their parents made a choice for them. And if their parents want to choose to tell them, you're taking the test because they think it's educationally sound, or they think it provides data for the teacher, or whatever reason they give their child, then that's the same conversation they're gonna have with their child as another parent is gonna have a conversation with their child that they don't think it is for that
And
reason.
some parents
How
have
is that
all the
penalizing
facts.
somebody?
If today on the menu is taking a test, some parents are very regimented. Today you take the test.
Okay, so, but how is that a penalty? I don't understand.
So the child that's.
You penalize the child by making them read for 2 hours last year. That's a penalty
What I'm
too.
saying is you have to be mindful of the 30% that are not taking.
I'm not being mindful, I'm saying you need to be in a testing environment. I never said you should not break the integrity
So
of the
you're
testing
asking about
environment.
bringing in a program, bringing in pilots. You're putting these 30% at a disadvantage, but they'll have the opportunity to be a part of that. And some of those groups, children want to be part of those pilots, the leader and all those things. So you shouldn't punish
But
those
do
30%.
we do it for every child in the first place?
The whole building of Boston, we didn't exclude children.
Okay. Do we do things in districts
Every
that not
child
every child gets to go?
had the invite of being included in the leader and me.
Do we ever do anything in education in a school where not every child gets to participate?
Well, then, wait, so
Happens
give me
all
an
the
example of
time.
that. Give me an example.
Maybe we should let.
No, but those kids
Field
are getting,
trips?
those kids are getting to take a test.
Field trips? I think it goes on with field
Anyway,
trips.
the other thing that I know that has been coming up is actually moving the 30% and putting them in different areas. If you're moving, say, a third grader, a third grader, you're kind of messing with their environment. If they're used to being in this room, now you're gonna pull them out of this room. Will it cause stress for that child to be removed from the room to take this test? You're asking them to take it in another area. So you want this child, you want the children that are taking the test to be comfortable in their environment.
We are an educational
You think
institution.
you think it's gonna cause any more stress by moving that child to another environment where it's the same?
I wanna hear
rather than
Dean's
having them-
answer.
having
I wanna
them-
hear Dean's answer.
It is something that we're discussing with building principals. The consensus last year was that removing students who were taking the test from the environment that they felt most comfortable with the classroom was not something that we wanted to do. But we are looking at it again this year because we did have classrooms of 1 or 2 children in it. So we are revisiting that. But as of right now, the general consensus with the principals is to maintain that environment within the classroom as the testing environment.
Yeah, because you have a student who has special education resources, you don't want to disrupt that environment for that child. You want it to be comfortable and what they're used to. So, that's what I worry about.
So that speaks out.
Yes, sir.
To Dean's point, I think it's very stressful on a child who's sitting in a classroom that normally has 10 or 15 kids, and now they're sitting in an empty room with 2 children going, why am I sitting here? Rather than sitting in a room with 10 or 15
I just want to make
kids.
sure that the children are
That's
taking
my
the test
personal opinion as an
and not
educator.
under any stress or any penalty for taking the test. I don't want them to be
I
penalized
don't either.
because their parents made a choice for them. It's still a child that I need to worry about.
I don't know, but to me, there's just as much stress on a child who's sitting in a classroom with 2 children when they're normally sitting with, let's say, 15, or especially, how about 25, and now they're down to 2 or 3, and they're sitting there looking like, why am I sitting here by myself? That's
Well, then I
a
hope,
huge
and I
stress
hope,
on a
and I hope
child.
administration makes appropriate
And
adjustments.
it's something that's constantly evolving, so it's a very fluid situation based upon the numbers of students who are refusing. So at this point, with a low number, it's one type of conversation. As that number grows, or if that number stays the same, the conversation is going to change. So it's something that's an ongoing fluid situation, and we're going to be adaptive to the needs of our students and the needs of our parents and the needs of our community. So.
Thank you.
Just one other thing. Another thing to consider is the unlimited time. That if you have kids reading, what if there's some students that are taking 3-4 hours? I mean, I don't know that it's gonna come to that, but, that's very different than 90 minutes or the testing amount or something.
So we're waiting for guidance from the state with regards to, the commissioner did come out with the untimed test. They did reduce the number of items on the test, but not significantly. It was only 1 or 2 items per exam. but they did make it on time. There is another state that does have that provision within its environment, which is Massachusetts. So we did, as a administrative team, look at the Massachusetts regulations to see how they allotted for the untimed test and what they do for students who are taking longer than what the anticipated conclusion is. So
So the new testing company is Questar, from what I understood, or I read, is that the testing are shorter now, it's not as long.
they're only shorter by a couple of items.
And there's still
This test
Pearson
is yours,
tests.
Pearson.
There's still Pearson tests, although Questar is
So where did Questar come in? Why was I under the impression that Questar was doing this?
They changed vendors for test creation, but the test that they're currently using for this school year is
So then Questar's test will actually take effect the year out?
Well, not really. So there's more information on that because we just had a superintendent's meeting on it last week. The test questions were designed by Pearson, but the actual structure of the test and the answer sheet was designed by Questar because there was no opportunity for Questar to do test questions and field testing. So, but the questions from Pearson were actually looked at by multiple teachers at different levels for all the different tests. So even though the original question was created by Pearson, and that's what, this is a very confusing, thing, and especially the way the FAQ came out a few days ago. The questions were created by Pearson because they've been field tested in the field by Pearson. But Pearson's no longer part of the scenario. So Pearson's test questions were given to Questar. Questar opened them up for the wise eyes of our teachers to look at and make sure that they were appropriate. And they're the ones who actually designed the layout of the test and the layout of the answer sheet. So it's kind of an amalgamation at this point, but the questions themselves were originally designed by Pearson and tested by Pearson.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say that, none of the children should ever be made to feel badly about a test, taking a test or not taking a test. My kids have taken a test, they don't have any of age to take a test now, but to stand here and entertain allowing the children who are not taking it to do crossword puzzles or play gym or have an assembly or, to think that that's not punishing the group that's taking it, I think is just, I don't know, I can't see that at all. It not only punishes those kids, it puts the kids, the takers against the non-takers because the non-takers come out and say, we play gym or we were playing on our iPad or, and then they come home and now it's kids against parents. I'm not taking a test, they're at an assembly. It's not a field day. They're at school. If they don't want to take the test or they can't take the test, that's fine. It's their choice or their parents' choice. But it's still school, and if it means you have to read for a couple of hours and take a break like you would in class after 40 minutes, or, that's fine. I don't think that, giving any child the extra advantage of even getting their homework done, or extra review sheets. Well, you know what, the other kids need the extra review sheets and stuff too. So I'm really hoping that that's not the case because it just, it puts the test takers at a disadvantage all the way. That's one thing. The thing that I really wanted to ask about, and not with computers, but a friend called and said that if I was going to ask this question. On the parent portal, when there's, I guess, where all the grades are, grade book, that it's appearing, like for the lab portion, I guess the science, that the labs that are not done yet or that are not graded yet are being posted as zeros, and then it appears that they failed science, then the kid got home and got punched. Well, that wasn't it. It was because they were all put into zeros instead of, like, I don't know, we're not done yet, we're not there yet. So, I don't know if that's the case, I didn't really go over it, I'm not really looking at that stuff, but when you average it out, all those zeros are averaged in to make the kid look like he failed, and really didn't, and,
Is that multiple teachers or just one specific teacher, Deirdre, do you know?
Is it a particular location or level?
science,
Middle school, high
10th
school?
grade science.
Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you this teacher.
It was,
No, that's it. But we'll just narrow the field. We'll look into that.
Thank you, Dean.
Okay, alrighty.
Thank you,
Is
Deidre.
that I know when I enter into e-school, I'm assuming e-school across the board is the same unless it's set up differently. If you don't put a grade in, there's a little like red, whatever, incomplete thing or boxing, whatever, and it does not calculate it. Maybe what happened was the teacher, went in and eliminated those, and then or if you don't have anything in the box, but then you have a line in there for a test, it automatically calculates it as a 0. Rather than if they leave the red dot in there or red bar, whatever it is, basically it's like an incomplete and it does not get calculated in the grade process. Maybe that's what happened. So I think that we haven't worked with these.
Yes?
Just because I hear the passion with the testing, and I don't have children that are involved in it, kids don't like tests. It's always stressful, whether it's the spelling test on Friday or whatever. But the talk amongst the adults about take the test, don't take the test, that stresses them out. Because already their parents are involved, so that adds another element to it. And have some confidence in the kids. Give them the opportunity, don't move them out of their seat. I remember test day, every other seat, everybody move. You gotta move. This whole class, everybody up, go in the cafeteria, sit, every other table. You know what? We made it. We did okay. Give them credit. It's all, you know what? Who's gonna be there on an interview when they're nervous? Learn them, buck it up. That's it. I tell my kids, pick up your boots, move on, figure it out. So you gotta take it, you don't have to take it, you know what? So the kids who gotta take the test and say, you know what, maybe your parents don't think you can pass. You know what I mean? What are you gonna say? You gonna start that war with them? One side against the other. Personally, I think everybody should take it. I took every test that was thrown in front of me, and my parents said, too bad you take it. What are you gonna do? Either they pass or fail. You do your best. That's what my parents told me, I did my best. I made it. I became somebody. Give the kids some credit, they can do it. And you know what? I would relish 3 hours to read by myself, right? Because I would learn to appreciate it. I get it that there are kids that maybe can't. But maybe we need to move them. Don't worry about their comfort zone. Move them where they're together. And as a group, they're together. Strength in numbers. Keep them that way. So then if you have kids that can't read or shouldn't read for 3 hours, I don't think crossword puzzles and gym is the answer, because we're here to educate. But I think you should give some of the kids credit for being able to work outside of that seat. Because they move and work in groups, they move and work in teams. I think you should consider it for testing, to keep them all happy.
Thank you, Chris.
That's my 2 cents on the subject. My kids took the test last year.
Do they live?
They lived. They survived, and my daughter learned a lesson. It's okay to take a test, and don't forget about it. But I did hear what other people had said about sitting for 2 hours in a book, and how strict it was, and the conversation with Ms. Adams about it. I somewhat agree with Nick that telling a kid to read a book in 2 hours is not. He brings a crossword, coloring book, something. They have to be quiet though, because you have to respect the kids' paper. But just to have them sit there and say, you have to read a book that's educational, but it can't be a course book. So the child that wants to read a comic book, or something, or wants to do a crossword test, or wants to do a coloring in the other reference, I think we could, be a little lax on it. They want to talk amongst themselves, as long as they're quiet. As far as moving the elementary students, I agree, kids taking the test will do better in that class. But secondary, they change classes all the time. So they're not fixated on one class. So when my daughter came home and said, Dad, me and 2 other girls are taking the test. I think it would be a little bit better for the test takers to be in a room full of students. And that you can do on a secondary level that wouldn't affect the kids taking the test. I think they would get a better morale and encouragement by doing it with a
No, I
larger
agree with
peer
that, it's
group
just a little,
than
it's
2.
the 3rd and 4th graders that you worry about, the first time
The
takers.
3rd and 4th graders, the elementary school, yes, because they don't change classes. So they're comfortable in that one classroom. But the secondary, you can.
Yeah, the secondary I'm not worried about, it's the little ones,
You
3rd and
change.
4th grade.
And they do change, not a particular time, they do change. my child's in first grade, and she goes to the other classroom and works sometimes in her reading group. There was nobody in her reading group, so she's in the reading group in the other classroom with 3 or 4 kids. So there is opportunity, that's in first grade. So there is opportunity, and I understand what you're saying, if you've got a large majority of children, and you can keep them all together, I agree. If you have 15
Boston was
kids,
fixing it, they
3
stayed in
kids.
one classroom.
I know, and that's
Except for
fine.
the 5th grade where they moved amongst 3 different classrooms. So you probably even do it for 5th grade, you know.
And that's why we have 3 kids in one room that are sitting there. I personally feel, as an educator, that those 3 kids are looking at it like, why am I the only 3 kids in here? Why? But if you brought in other kids,
Right.
in the same grade, obviously, taking the test, that they'd feel more comfortable,
It's
more
gotta be a
encouraged.
happy medium.
You're right, you guys have,
We're all taking the test.
but you're right, he's right.
There is no real right answer.
But you gotta make what's best, you gotta do what's best for the children to be best. Now with parents, means the kids taking the test. It's the kids not taking the test. They can't feel ostracized by either decision. That, you're right, they didn't make, the parents made the decision. And you'll get on that.
Thank you, Leah.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Neil.
Leah.
I want to make a request, since there was only 6 people talking, that I be allowed to come up and say one more thing.
Half hour's up, actually.
Oh.
It's been over, yeah, we went over.
6 times 3 is 18.
We had side conversations that I
But
had
that
to-
shouldn't count towards my public portion.
That's not politics.
All right, we're moving on to policy. Moving to the adoption of the second reading of the district sample policy. Policies, actually, that's right. Public participation at board meetings, visitors to the building, visitors to the school. Gifts from the public, district sample policy, graduation requirements, update draft. And I believe there's one other, support staff leave of absence. So I'm looking for a motion and a second.
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nothing under abolishment?
Second.
Yeah, okay. We're taking, professional staff and development, and we're abolishing.
Yeah, it was out the enterprise meeting, and this was in the contract.
Those were the first readings. No, I'm saying the abolishment. Oh, gotcha. All right, looking for a motion in a second.
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're moving over to personnel matters. We're looking at Schedule 1, 2, and 3. Schedule 1 is resignations, terminations. Schedule 2, appointments, tenure, and salary changes. I need a motion in a second. On Schedule 1.
Motion.
Second?
Nothing incorrect.
I'll second it. All in favor? All in favor? Nick?
I have nothing in mind.
Just go down for
Yeah, change, huh? Check. I mean, I looked at it, but it's not there.
Any questions on Schedule 1?
I do not have it.
Nick? You have the hard copy?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. I move it over to Schedule 2. I need a motion in a second.
motion.
Second, all in favor? Aye, anything on that 3? Okay, moving on to financial matters. We have items 2 through 6, Treasurer's Report for December 31st, 2015. Appropriation status, report from July 1st, 2015 through December 31st, 2015. Revenue status, report July 1st, 2015 through December 31st, 2015. Overtime reports, July 1st, 2015 through December 29th, 2015. And last on this is school lunch reports, July 1st, 2015 through December 31st, 2015. I need a motion and we can have a discussion.
Motion.
I'll second it. Anyone have any questions? I actually have a question, Sharon. the appropriation, we have an adjustment of $418,000. Where was that money taken from? It's the final amount, the total amount of the adjustment. Is it 418? Actually, no. No, disregard that. I just realized this. Disregard that one. Answer my own question.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions? Okay. All in favor, items 2 through 6?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving over to consent agenda. Basketball uniform donation.
I find that interesting. Is that the free one?
I'm sorry?
Is that the free misorganization? I think
Let's play it forward.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a not-for-profit organization.
and they just pass out, how do we get the honors?
We had basketball uniforms that were kind of outdated and, kind of taking up space in our, and this was, we were just looking for a place that would take them and use them.
I need a motion in a second.
Motion.
I'll second it. All in favor? All right, moving over, I think it's the agenda, right? Okay. All right, we're moving on to reports, Board of Education committees. Craig and I were at the Health and Safety, and I don't want to put John on the spot. I don't want to steal your thunder, but there was one particular item that got myself and Craig excited. Would you like to elaborate?
Actually, I've had some discussions with the town of Islip about trying to figure out ways of alleviating some of the traffic into the high school during the morning hours. Had conversations with their planning department. We met at the secondary campus. They agree with the preliminary assessments at this point. They've asked that Ms. Adams write a letter to the town supervisor, the councilman, and the Commissioner Owens, to ask if a joint partnership could be formed and fully evaluate and make determinations whether or not the proposal holds weight.
Is the proposal where they close the street and everyone goes in one way and then when they go out the other way?
Yeah, I was going to say, John, could you explain the layout of what you're proposing?
As you come down 7th into the high school, as you get closer to the building, the road opens up quite a bit. There's about 39 feet of overall road width there. Town of Islip requires 11.5 feet for a dedicated lane. What that allows for is to create 3 separate lanes, 2 of which would be able to go into the high school during the morning hours, and 1 that would be the egress off the campus. So when you come up to the security booth, you'd have 1 lane that would go to the right, that would be for all of the student parking and a few miscellaneous staff members, and then everything, the buses and all the other staff members who go to the left would be able to go at the same time. So instead of everybody staging up in 1 line, it would allow the line to break apart into 2, and we would be able to bring the cars in that much quicker.
So normally the students go on the right, faculty and staff go on the left?
For the most part, yes. So,
I don't know, we had a lot of questions, Craig. That was all exciting,
Let me-
right? That was
one
a good,
more.
that was good.
Did they reach out to you or did you go to them?
I reached out to them.
I have to commend you on that publicly, John, for doing that. I mean, that's been, a problem going on for years, and you
Let's see, let's,
keep your fingers
I'm
crossed.
cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, that's great.
John, you were talking about that last crossroad from there to the high school,
Delver, yes.
correct?
Yeah, so the town, because of the way the houses are configured on 7th, they wouldn't want to take it much beyond the crossing street, the intersection there. But they would be very interested in creating lane markings from Delver all the way up into the campus. They're also willing to look at the entire traffic flow throughout the community up there, because a lot of times what I've noticed and what I keep hearing is people in an effort to avoid the line and the queuing on 7th will dodge and weave through other side roads in order to get to the campus quicker. So everything's on the table. The only thing that I proposed was changing the lane markings. And then the wheels started turning about what could happen as well, because they're getting complaints, and they've been getting complaints for years themselves. They just have never had any way of addressing it.
Thank you, John, we appreciate that. Does anybody else have to report on a committee? Any committee?
No, I was, the steering committie, I had to do a science fair with my granddaughter. So I apologize for that, I heard it was very good.
Frank, I understand you sat on some committees. Would you like to share?
He's gonna let me share. He's gonna let me steal his thunder.
Oh, come on,
Linda does
Craig.
a great job. I'll have something to say later on.
Okay.
Linda does a great job with the presentation.
My turn? Tag I'm in, okay.
Let's chicken way out for a high grade of public speaking. We've passed the baton.
No, he's gonna wait till I tell him everything. Okay, that's it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's okay. I have already written a letter to our Islip Town councilman, councilwoman, and everybody else that we needed to alert to creating that partnership. In fact, I have a meeting with Angie Carpenter tomorrow morning at 8:30, so let's hope there's no snow so I can get to that meeting. We had a steering committee meeting last Monday. We meet the first Monday of every month, and we also had a very badly attended task force meeting. In fact, I was the only one there, so I got a lot done. It was all good. But what we decided on the steering committee is we had a really well-attended American Nurse Night where we talked about it at last meeting, but it was very well attended. We've gotten many emails thanking us for doing it, and by the way, when's the next one? So the steering committee decided that they would like to produce 3 a year, one in October, one in January, and one sometime in March. They decided the first one would be a career in technology. So we'll be reaching out to local companies to provide us with folks to actually be part of the panel, if there was any movies or anything along those lines, and potentially have that be our first career night in October. The next one that they wanted to talk about was aeronautics/aviation, since we have this wonderful resource right here in our backyard, looking at all the different careers that would be available to kids and our local community as part of an aviation career. So your husband is going to run the whole committee.
Oh, boy, he's not,
They volunteer, he volunteered.
did you volunteer my husband to do it? All right, then you're gonna call him later and you're gonna ask him to do it. He's very shy, my husband.
So actually, Dan Hoy was an air traffic control agent before he became a nurse, so he's willing to talk about things as well, but we automatically talk about your husband.
Yeah, but also,
We did have a parent that came down on the day of the nursing. Yep,
her husband or something.
her husband, yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna warn you, if my husband comes, he's gonna give it straight, he's a straight talker, so
That's
there's no
perfect, that's
fluff
what we
in that.
want. So the third one would be determined by interest on behalf of anyone who wants to step forward and run it, and our kids. So that was a really nice steering committee meeting that we had. I've had some meetings, actually Greg Sarah will be coming to present to you folks soon. He would like to donate a brand new turf infield at the high school for our baseball field. So he's willing to donate the turf and the labor and everything, so
Wait,
they'll
how
have
much square footage were we talking about?
the whole infield, so the infield of the diamond. So you have the mound, you have the
Okay,
home
okay,
plate,
okay.
all that in there.
Oh,
He'd like to put
really?
in new turf, yes.
Wow, that's very generous.
So he'll come and talk to you folks
New
about
turf?
it. Grass
Not
turf,
baseball.
not plastic turf. Sod, thank you. I knew there was a better name for it.
Oh, Linda, that changes everything. If it's sod, it's a lot different from what you were saying.
I know.
You did, yeah, sod.
A little more of a classy sod, yes, not turf.
Yes.
In early aviation, she'll reach out to Southwest, they used to be able to donate a pilot for
Southwest, perfect, okay. We had 2 great plays this past weekend. The show must go on, so even though Friday we were closed, we had a matinee on Saturday instead of the Friday night production. The Lion King Jr. was at RMS, fabulous costuming, fabulous stagecraft, really just an amazing, amazing show, and a classic, Guys and Dolls, which I brought my kids to, and where they were like, Mom, they're not even understanding the references. So we went home and watched it. We watched the Frank Sinatra and Marlon Brando version as well. So we had a whole Guys and Dolls night. They were just wonderful. Our kids are really, really talented. If you get a chance before you leave, we had our Connetquot Thunderbirds football banquet. This was produced by a parent. It is one of the most beautiful brochures I've ever seen, and it was so well done. The boys got. No, you have to go.
Oh, where?
The banquet.
Oh, we weren't invited, were we?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I don't recall getting an invite.
That's okay. Next year. It was a really nice event. The kids were wonderful. The parents were. It just really well done. Our varsity cheerleaders made it to the finals in this weekend's competition. They did not place again, but they actually got to the finals on Sunday. And I do want to just put out an announcement for Eastern Suffolk BOCES that.
Wait, before you go on, talk about the kids, the wrestling. They had quite a few kids that made it to county. Wrestling.
County wrestling?
Yes.
They didn't give me that feedback, so I
There
don't
was
know
about
that.
10 kids in the county, right?
The county match.
Yeah, say about 10.
I can get you that information though for next time, because that's really. The county match.
Yes, that's okay.
That's really amazing. Well, Sandra is an amazing coach. They're calling for nominations for the Eastern Suffolk BOCES board.
I nominate Nick.
What I did not know is that you don't have to be on a board of education to serve, so you're off the hook. See that? I really would love, looking at you, I really would love to have a Connetquot voice on that board, and I'll explain to the person who decides to do it, if they want to run, why we need a Connetquot voice on that board. I'll tell everybody. BOCES has changed their practice, their billing practice. And they are now averaging the last 3 years of students that attend a BOCES facility. So if we were to build academies in Connetquot, which is something that we're working toward, and we would start bringing kids back to our high school, we would actually have to pay for the spots that those kids would normally have taken up in a BOCES facility, because it's a 3-year average.
Boy, that's a
So
problem.
that's kind of an iffy practice to me. So we actually have 155 kids right now that go to the CTE programs. I'm not talking about the special education programs, I'm talking CTE. It is the highest number of students in Suffolk County that attend.
$1.8 million.
$1.8 million is a price tag. I would like to build those academies, bring those kids back. If we got 18 teachers, which is what $1.8 million supports with their benefits and everything, that would be over 2,000 kids served. So I'm trying to build those academies to bring the kids back and have our kids be full members of our high school, including plays and sports and all these great things that we see.
So what would be considered a STEM, so how do we become a STEM high school?
Well, we would build a STEM program, and I know we have kids that are doing really beautifully in that STEM program, but we could have maybe 15 or 20 kids in a STEM program here. Right now we're sending 3, and as I said, we're gonna have to pay for 155 kids even if we send 100.
But Connetquot has the most kids in the STEM high school at 3. Everyone else only has 1.
Well, I don't know,
Right.
but that's what they're
That's
doing
our
right
kids.
now, and I just was a little shocked by that. So I'd really like a Connetquot voice on the board, and what's wonderful is you do not need to be a board member, which I did not know until the administrative meeting that we were at just recently. And I know that there are a couple people in the audience that would be really strong board members of BOCES. Looking at you, lady. All right, and I think
Can
that's
you
all.
talk about Model UN?
I did not go to Monument again because I was at the legislative breakfast in Longwood.
Okay,
So why don't you tell us
I
about
will
the
talk
Model
about
UN?
Model UN. Actually, it's right here,
No,
actually.
he left.
Yeah, Ray's son, I actually saw Ray's son and a few other kids there. It was phenomenal. I was completely impressed with these children. I think it was about 7 or 8 rooms. They had different rooms of real world event issues. And to hear these kids debate and present, and I was blown away, and how they represented each of the United Nations. Again, I walked away, I couldn't be more impressed with these group of students. It was amazing, and it just gave you a little bit of confidence in the future of like, our future leaders were definitely in that room. It was impressive.
What's wonderful about our Model UN here is that they start with a real world topic, but what our advisor actually does is kind of put a problem in front of them immediately, whereas in other Model UNs, they go through part of the day, and then something strikes in the world, and they start to work on the problem. But what she does is she throws the problem at them early,
Yes.
so that they have a different focus. It kind of takes them away from the normalcy of just being in part of the UN rooms, and they have to discuss this problem immediately. So it's different. She does it different than
I think there's
all
a
of us.
human rights, there was human rights room, there was a middle room, there was also science and aerospace or something. I mean, each room was, you know, it was wonderful.
Yeah, she does a great job.
And by the way, I agree with you, both plays were spectacular.
They were so much fun.
Yeah.
Our kids were so good.
Anybody else have anything?
I have, going back to the Board of Ed.
No, because we need to.
Administrators, they're available.
All right. So I'm gonna ask John Allen, and I don't want to, I'm trying to not muddy the waters here, because what we did earlier was, in order to establish the capital fund, the kind of things we're looking at for the future. We got the final yes and approval from the state education department after being up at the state for 16 months for the approval for our 2014 bond. So this is the actual scope of work that was approved in the 2014 capital project, some of which will commence this summer. But we don't want you to confuse the two different things that we're looking at right now. So this is the actual work, and much of it will commence this summer, and hopefully a lot of it will be completed this summer.
So really, I just gave very broad strokes. I didn't think it was fair to really have a conversation about potential capital projects in the future if we couldn't talk about what was going to be happening now. So when this project was approved a few years ago, the main focus of the project, one of the main focuses, was heating and ventilation controls. If you go through the district, we've had problems, to say the least, about tying our controls, our units, to a BMS, a building management system. So this is going to change out the controls and put a standard system in so that we're going to be able to have the custodian or our maintenance mechanics remote session in. They can address all the problems in real time in each of the different units. So each of the classrooms that have unit ventilators, they're going to be addressed. Offices, large spaces up on the roofs, they're going to be addressed as well. This work is going to go out on the street in about a month or so. We're going to hopefully award it at a board meeting in April, so that we will be able to start commencing the work this summer.
Are we no longer, John, going to have to go on the roof to adjust the library unit? Is that addressed in this?
Some units in the district, we don't have any kind of remote access to, so we actually have to manually flip switches on and off. So this would address those.
That's going to be addressed?
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Yep. So when we start talking about some of the unit ventilators, there are hundreds throughout the district. We have many that are 20 years of age or older, many of which are problematic, getting parts for them, the amount of downtime associated with them and everything else. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the buildings. We've talked to all the heads and chiefs of each of the buildings, and we're going to be replacing them in quite a large number across the district.
Now, will they be clean and no paper or gun wrappers will be thrown inside of
They
them?
will be brand new, yes, they will be. And that is an ongoing concern as well. But this is how we're going to address the oldest ones. We're going to do a straight replacement of the oldest units in the district. Throughout the district, there's quite a few ceilings that have not been addressed over the years, approximately 120 total spaces. We have 80 that we've identified as being in the worst condition. Another 40 that we're going to send out when we do the bid for this. We're going to send it up as an alternate. My biggest concern is making sure I have enough place to do all of our heating and ventilation issues. So I don't want to overcommit to doing ceilings if it's going to mean I have to sacrifice something else. So that's why I've broken it down this way. Technology. Throughout the district, we have, I believe it's 38 different closets with switches, servers, SANs, storage area networks. And we have a lot of equipment that is outdated, out of warranty. So this is a way for us to go through and do a massive overhaul of all that equipment and bring the district into good standing, which will parlay right into the smart schools funding that we're going to get over the next couple of years. We'll have the backbone infrastructure in place to do a lot of that.
John, what building were we at the, I want to say it was the high school, but it wasn't a lot, remember they were that casing?
There's several cabinets. There was one at the high school cafeteria, faculty cafeteria room. There's a closet or a cabinet in the Sycamore computer lab also. So in some cases, we're gonna go out and buy larger cabinets so that all the wiring will fit appropriately. In many cases, we're gonna have to get completely new switches and everything else, and it'll all be done at the same time. But this should allow us to lock all cabinets that are in public spaces. We'll create closets with proper ventilation, so they're out of circulation.
Thank you.
Tennis courts, it came up earlier. It has been a priority too for the last several years, or last couple projects. We're actually going out to bid with this on the 23rd of this month. Hopefully we'll be able to award it at a March meeting. I was hoping that we were going to be able to get state approval earlier than we did, and we'd actually be able to get it in place before the spring season at the middle schools. That didn't happen with the January 20th approval from state ed, but we will be doing this first thing this summer.
What's the latest one?
This is actually 2014 law.
Right, Casper.
Correct.
What's being done, John? Is it a replacement or resurface? Or?
Going to remove it down to the aggregate. We're going to put a new composite. They're going to compress it, and then pour a new surface over the top.
So is it a concrete, and then on top of it, is it a different type of material?
Asphalt.
It's an asphalt?
Yeah.
Can we make it red?
We will talk colors later.
That would be nice. You know, Craig has a point there, John.
The color could make a significant price difference.
We'll discuss that later. And that's really it. So those are the main things. There's plenty of other little things that are happening. We're putting new air conditioning in some of the closets, as I mentioned. We're doing some site work. We're fixing the brakes over at Sycamore on the exterior. A lot of miscellaneous stuff that's going to impact each of the buildings. But these are the foundations for this project. I just wanted everybody to know work is going to start happening this summer in earnest.
Thank you, John.
Oh, and then you have the strobe lights, can you go into that?
You just did. I apologize.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I did have one on the slide. I
I got
apologize.
excited about the tennis courts.
So the state, in their infinite wisdom, decided to once again throw another unfunded mandate at the district. That being the carbon monoxide sensor. So every single room that has a fuel source has to have a sensing device and a notification device. It's a massive undertaking. All of your science labs, spaces adjacent to your boiler rooms, art rooms that have kiln, cafeterias, all these areas must have an outside source, an outside sensor that's a notification process. Because it's going to have a notification process, we've spoken with Don Flynn. We've looked at some of the needs that have come back to the district over the past couple of months regarding security, and we're going to find a way to incorporate them all into one comprehensive system. It will give us multiple strobe lights that will give us visual alerts outside of the building. There's been discussions about not having adequate notification outside the buildings or in some of our louder environments, such as cafeterias, band rooms, gymnasiums. So that'll put visual strobe out so that the staff will be aware that there's a concern. Speaker refurbishments, there's speakers that are in locations for the most part, but they are old speakers. So we're going to have to replace them and start putting some better speakers in there so that the announcements can actually be heard by everybody in those
That'd be
spaces.
nice.
The PA system at Duffield is the last remaining PA system of a Connetquot nature. It's probably 20, 25 years of age. It doesn't have some of the safety features that the other systems have. So that was something that wasn't necessarily in the scope, but in light of the conversations and the changes that have occurred since 2014, and this project was approved, we're going to address it now. There's some emergency lighting.
What about this room?
Emergency lighting at the high school. So
The sound
that's once
system
again
in
a
this room.
security measure as well. And then once again, the carbon monoxide system.
This was all approved in 2014 bond?
This is all part of that as well. Yes.
John, is the parking lot at Duffield going to be done this summer?
Not the parking lot. What we're going to do is we have the road. So when you come down Duffield, you have that main stretch of road, and you have the road where it loops in front of the building where the bus loop is. The main thoroughfare that goes from the fields all the way back around to the community, a large section of that's going to be addressed. We're actually taking measurements of it right now. We're going to try to figure out how far we can take it. We're going to address it, but I don't know how far. Once again, heat and ventilation is going to be paramount. We're going to award that work. We're going to get those numbers first before we decide how far we can go with some of that site work. That's it.
Thank you, John. Any other administrative reports? Jean, Bob, Monica?
Just a couple of items for the curriculum office. On February 1st, the E&L department hosted its annual E&L dinner themed Winter Around the World. We had 40 of our E&L students, along with their families, come to RMS. We had a representative from the Connetquot Public Library who shared information, resources, as well as signed people up for their library cards. We had our high school civics club with Michelle Goodwin.
She left.
Provided some assistance throughout the night, and it was a great event for our families, and it really showed the welcoming nature of the Connetquot community. So it was one of those great moments. On January 20th, we had our fourth workshop for our new teachers. This meeting focused on formative assessments and was facilitated by Mary Lowson. It was followed up by a question and answer session with 5 different administrators being present to speak with the new teachers. John talked a little bit about technology. We have started to install wireless in our elementary schools. We have 3 of them completed. Duffield, Cherokee, and Slocum.
You got locked.
We're getting there. So the secondary schools.
It was terrible there. I was at the play. You couldn't, I mean, you would have to literally leave the park and like go up to the next street before you can get a signal.
Well, wireless signal is one thing, but the Wi-Fi is a different piece. But the Wi-Fi we have in all of our secondary schools, we do not have in the elementaries, and that's in the process of installing now. And that is, obviously with the 2 snow days, we were closed Friday and Monday. We will be open on March 28th and also on
May something.
May 27th. Notification from my office will be going out to the community.
Thank you, Dean.
In 2 days, we will be open?
Bob? Monica?
I have just a few things. The first being, recently, Ms. Adams, along with SEPTA and Ms. Kennedy from SEPTA, we've written a letter to Commissioner Elliott, as well as the Board of Regents, expressing our concerns regarding the diploma types and offering some additional options.
Can you turn the microphone on?
With a cover letter to all the local senators, congressmen, assemblymen, and actually over the Christmas break, Ms. Kennedy and I did meet with the local assemblymen as well regarding this issue. On another note, in our PPS office, we have started a mental health first aid workshop. It was supposed to start yesterday. Through the PPS office, we are doing a 3-day training. It's mental health first aid. It was supposed to start yesterday, it did start today. We have gathered many of our mental health providers, psychologists, YFS workers, guidance counselors, school nurses, many members of our school-based support team, and we're offering a 3-day mental health workshop, where although we know a lot about the diagnostic criteria for some of the issues that plague our school-age students, to really sit down and talk about a common language that we can share on the building level with teachers and other members of the staff. So this is a really great 3 days of conversation, and then from there we figure out how we want to take it back to the buildings. And that's being coordinated by Ms. Gail Santa. And then finally, annual reviews are started during our 504s, and right after the February break, they will start for our special education students as well.
Great, thank you, Monica.
I just have one more thing to report on. Mr. Middleton and I actually met with the directors of the nursery school, because I know that there had been some issues with a new program that had become part of the nursery school. In the afternoon program, we only had Connetquot kids in the nursery school, and they actually were recipients of a grant from the Central Islip School District, and so 12 students right now are full day via a grant from the Central Islip School District. And what had happened was the Central Islip program actually took over the main house, and our students, our 20 students in the afternoon, and it's 19 students in the morning, were displaced into the cottage. And the cottage is a significantly smaller building than the main house. So Mr. Middleman and I met with some representatives from Central Islip, as well as one of the owners and directors of the program. And she's come up with a rotational schedule, which I think is actually going to work beautifully as kids move through the different stations of learning. There will be 2 stations in the cottage and 3 or 4 stations in the main house, and so all the kids will share both rooms as a campus rather than be situated in one room or the other. Our kids will actually start and end the day in the large room, which will be their home base, and they'll be broken up into 6 or 7 kids each week. And those students will move together as a group into the smaller stations, 2 of which are in the cottage. So I think it was a nice compromise, and it allows, they're actually elevating the curriculum by kind of buying into the creative curriculum, which is a canned curriculum that has been award-winning across the country for pre-K, and they will be putting together all of their learning stations will be interdisciplinary, so that they're learning very similar things in all the different stations in technical and aesthetic, and which is how little kids learn, touching, tasting, you all know that, right? They want to put things in their mouth all the time, but even 4-year-olds need to touch things and play with things in order for them to learn. So there's going to be structured and unstructured play that revolves around objectives that will be varied throughout the whole day through the learning stations. So I just sent that, we created a spreadsheet because she had put it out on paper and it was just visually, you couldn't see what was going on. So we created a spreadsheet and we sent it out to the CI folks we met with and the director of the program. And so there were a few small minor changes. As soon as they solidify it, we'll put out a letter to all of our parents and we'll start this new rotation. I think everyone's going to be happy with it. It really does share the campus really nicely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. Appreciate the help. I have a question for Molly.
Sure.
I know Linda said she would send us your letter, but do you feel that it would be helpful for us as a board to either join in your letter or write a separate letter supporting the same issue for you and Ms. Kennedy, as far as, throwing our support behind that? Because I think it's an important issue and we should be, supporting what we do.
Yes.
How do you feel about that?
We would greatly appreciate it.
All right, so it's definitely
So would
something we
you
should look
wanna-
at and discuss.
I wrote the original letter, so now I have to write another one? Okay.
No, I have no problem with joining on with theirs if they're comfortable with that. That's up to them.
Ours is
Otherwise,
done.
writing a second. one,
Ours is
you know.
done, that's
Ours
right.
is done.
Okay.
Right, you're wrong.
Okay, well then,
We'd be happy to forward you our letter, and if
Yes.
you'd like to have some
And the more
conversation
letters
about
they
it.
get about it, the better. So if you want to urge our teachers union to write one also, and I think some more emphasis, ours targeted special ed kids, our special ed kids, and their options, and no general diploma for them. But if you want to open it up broader for all of our kids, gen ed and
yeah, it
special
should be
ed,
alternatives for
the only
everybody.
pathway that our gen ed kids is just a Regents diploma. That's their only option. Why can't it be?
Our
local
PTA
diploma?
should support that too,
I agree
Lee.
100%.
So yes, write your own.
Yes.
All right, so I
Another
write a
letter.
letter that is a little more broad
You should
than
be
the
good at
SEPTA
it.
letter.
You
I'm
have
getting really, really good at it.
I think we should write the
You have
letter.
practice.
That's okay, I'll write a draft.
Okay, any reports on the Board of Education? Lee, I think I heard you mention something.
I got a report, I did go to Penn's also, but they were great. But I have a question, I guess, I don't know if it's Dean or Linda, who answers. In terms of the modules and stuff, and when we went to that convention, they talked about math books, getting books. Can you tell me the status of the modules? I know some people are still unhappy with them versus the books.
So we currently use we've adapted the New York State modules. We did a significant amount of work last summer, and we plan to continue that work this summer. The modules are our primary resource, but that doesn't exclude teachers from using other resources that they have available to themselves. We have set up small teams that meet on a monthly basis with our chairperson of math, our elementary chairperson of math, and we'll be meeting with our director of math as well, to kind of go through, critique, evaluate, provide other solutions, other resources that are available on a consistent basis. So that's where we are at this point with regards to the modules. We have started the discussions at looking at other resources that are available to us, and we have some samples that are coming into district. We have one set of samples that are currently in district, and we have a second set of samples that we're bringing in as well. Both myself, the director of mathematics, and the chairperson for elementary math will be reviewing those, evaluating those, and speaking to some of our staff about it.
Those purpose that they were talking about, or?
There's a lot of different things out there. We want to make sure that the work that we've done and the work that our teachers have done over the past 2 years is preserved in some respect, and make sure that the resources match the New York State standards that are out there. A lot of resources that are out there saying that they are aligned, but they're not as aligned as they say they are, so we want to make sure that we're putting a resource that's in front of our teachers that's perfectly aligned.
Do we have plans to speak to the teachers regarding their thoughts? And when I mean the teachers, I mean all the teachers, not just a handful of people. I mean, I understand what you're saying in regards to respecting what the teachers have done for the past 2 years or what we plan to do, but they're working with a broken system that New York State has said is a broken system. So why we would continue to work with a broken system is beyond my understanding. I really don't understand. So my question is, are we going to look at the teachers and ask the teachers their opinion on whether or not they'd be interested in seeking other resources, or possibly switching to another main focal resource and continue keeping the work they did as a secondary resource or as a place to go to, sort of like we did with Envisions? Is that in the works, or are we just, is your philosophy at this point just moving forward with making further corrections to the modules, and allowing teachers to bring in the other resources that they have at this current time?
Last year, when we first proposed the plan, it was a 2-year plan of looking at the modules and reevaluating them and adapting them to meet our needs. But we have had some conversation about looking at additional resources, and everything that we have done with regards to instructional resources, we have honored the voice of all stakeholders. We have brought all teachers on board with regards to literacy, so that we have representatives who are able to communicate not only for themselves, but also for their colleagues, their grade levels, their buildings. So we'll continue those processes that we've already established when we start to look at mathematics. And as the new director came on board, we started the conversation of additional resources that are available, and we will be having those conversations this spring as well with our teachers.
So let me ask you something, Dean. It sounds as though that they're tailoring it to their personal use of what's beneficial to our students. So if there's any outside resources that they need, they can just go online and obtain those outside resources. We don't really have to really spend money on resources. I mean, it sounds that they're, from what I'm hearing from you, they're doing a great job. I noticed in my children's classes, Connetquot came on, and I saw that teachers took on a personal ownership of how to teach the particular segments, the different problems. It sounds as that's what you're comprising of information, it sounds like.
Well, one of the things that we've done over the past, that we're continuing on this year, is building their capacity. So as generalists, which elementary teachers are, we're creating math specialists, math teachers, who have a deep conceptual understanding of mathematics. That's the ultimate goal of this process. What resources we use, hopefully meets whichever resource is chosen, or the one that we chose to use. The goal again was to build their capacity so that they become stronger as math teachers at the elementary level. They have a deeper conceptual understanding. As we move forward, after we've done that part, and we need to look at other resources. Teachers have the flexibility to, they own the instruction within their classroom, so they have the opportunity to look at other resources, to adapt to other resources. Some have a higher skill set than others and have a higher comfort level than others, and that's something that we're working on supporting them. But there is a point where we're going to have to look to supplement and see if there's additional resources out there that better meet the needs of our kids. And ultimately, if that may require an additional cost to the district, which would be purchasing either consumable workbooks or a textbook series or something like that. But we do have a policy in place with regards to the process of reviewing and adopting the textbook series and doing that. So we have started the conversations on the administrative level with building principals as well, and we're going to be, having that conversation throughout the spring with our instructional staff.
Just having children in the district, I can see that a lot of the work, there's ownership there, and the kids, from what I get, it's just my sort, they seem to be very adaptable, and I look at the work that's coming home, and I think it's great, there's an ownership to it, which
It's not perfect, and that's something that we'll all admit, but
I see, it seems though you're working through those challenges.
there's a philosophical piece to this, and that's we have a high level of commitment on the part of our teachers with regards to the instructional resources and methodologies with regards to both mathematics, ELA science, and social studies.
Again, I can only speak to what I am exposed to, so I don't know what happens on other grade levels. I can only tell you from my experiences, it seems, particularly the math, because I like to look at the math assignments. I mean, right on point, I think they're great.
Elementary is much different. Here's my concern, and I agree with everything, I think you're doing a fantastic job of getting our teachers to the point where they can teach and use multiple resources, and I appreciate that. I think the program is on the right track of trying to provide them with as much, and we've had this conversation, you and I, with as much as possible. My concerns are that we have something uniform that a majority of the teachers are using as a resource. I understand that every teacher's going to bring in a little piece. I bring in things to my lessons that are not, supported by my district, that I found online and things like that. But I think that, my personal opinion, the major piece that we are using should be something that the district is using across the entire district, so that a kid in Cherokee and a kid in Slocum and a kid in Boston is getting that same base curriculum.
I thought that was the end game.
But to me, my point is that I don't think that the modules offer that. So if you now are allowing people to bring in other things to make the modules better, or to make the advancement in the classroom better in addition to the modules, and that's different in every building and different in every classroom, I see that as a problem. Not on the teacher's fault. They're doing everything they can to try and get as much out of kids. I see that as a district problem, that we're not providing them with enough of a solid resource. I also think that,
Just so, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but
yeah, no, go ahead.
prior to both Linda and my arrival, we had everybody doing everything. So one of the things that we have done is created that consistency.
I agree.
And the modules provided that kind of path for us. So, there is some variation, but I think the level of variation is not as great as it once was. And I think that we have a significant commitment and a buy-in with regards to the instructional style of mathematics now. As far as the resources, that's a whole nother topic. But I think that the consistency from classroom to classroom is at the highest it's been.
I agree, 100%. Where I was going with what I was trying to say is, and I do agree with what you're saying, and I think that we're doing a good job with all of that consistency and bringing people together. My thing is that a big part of that also is how the parents are able to support their children. And the modules stink. They have nothing that helps a parent support the child. They have nothing that offers a parent a place to go to support their child. There's very little in the factor review. There's very little for a child to go back to on their own. And I think that personally, we need to provide some sort of, whether it's an additional piece to that, or getting rid of that.
Talks of doing workshops for parents.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about on a daily basis. Your kid brings your homework home, and you look at that book, and they don't know how to do it. There's nothing in that module for that parent to go back to. The website's terrible. In my book that I use, and I'm not saying it's the best book in the world, there are plenty of other things out there, the beginning of the section has information for a parent to go back and look at the examples and follow through. It's definitely more engaging for the children than the modules are. I'm not saying that you guys haven't done a great job of trying to make the modules ours and bring ownership to Connetquot. I think you have.